Trucking. AAA Cooper is here. Nice to meet you. So this gentleman is not going to learn anything new about the trucking industry, but maybe something new about where we're going with it. So my name is Leo Schreiber. I am the founder of Truck Trust. A little background about me. From 97 to 2002, I worked as a software engineer for Alcatel. And at that time, my father was a truck driver, and his eyesight was getting progressively worse. And so at that time, I've decided to start a trucking company, and my goal was to get my father off the truck. So we did. I left my cushy job with benefits at Alcatel and submerged myself completely into the headaches of running a trucking company, with me at the helm, meaning at the dispatch, and my father in the truck, driving the truck. The idea was to get this company going, to have several trucks, so my father wouldn't have to drive anymore. And so I spent 14 years as the owner of a trucking company, and later the owner of the freight brokerage business. I learned a lot about the industry, a lot about the people in the industry. I had some good years and some bad years. But all in all, I've got some good experience, and now I'm going to use this experience to transform this industry. So, many years ago, people lived in small communities. They worked, they hunted, they shared. Everybody knew everyone. In a small community like this, it is very difficult to get away doing bad things. But as time went on, and we learned how to grow food, how to breed livestock, and the communities grew larger. Thousands of people could now live together. But as communities grew larger, it became difficult for people to remember who is who. It became difficult for people to trust one another. So this created the opportunity for strong men to come in to keep order. But of course, with this great responsibility came great power. And great power led to corruption and abuse. That was the beginning of hierarchies. For thousands of years, people suffered greatly at the hands of hierarchies, state and church. And the societies were greatly centralized until about 500 years ago, when the printing press was invented. It allowed people to communicate broadly. It broadened their horizons, and people started to get their own ideas about how things can be done outside of the mandate of church and state. Today, businesses have a very tall organizational structure. These businesses tend to extract a disproportionate amount of value out of the bottom layer. These could be employees or customers, and suck up all this value to the top. Now, this may not be true for all companies like that, and it's probably definitely not true for IBM, but it's definitely true for large trucking companies. So, printing press, one of the first in a long line of technologies that allowed for this new wave of decentralization. And the latest of these technologies is blockchain. It enables us to create large, decentralized business communities where the value created stays within the community itself. Now, a little bit about the trucking industry. For those of you who don't know, trucking industry is very fragmented. There are 1.4 million for-hire trucking companies in the US. 93% of them have 6 trucks or less. There are 3.5 million truck drivers. It's not very difficult to get into the trucking business as a small carrier, but it is very difficult to make a profit. Following all the regulations, dealing with equipment maintenance, driver turnover, which currently sits at 100%, it's all very difficult. But the most difficult part for any small trucking company is not having any customers, not having a direct relationships with those companies who ship freight. Meaning that the rates for which they hold that freight is deeply discounted. Multiple intermediaries are taking a cut out of their profit until there is no profit left. So there's this old joke in the industry. This old truck driver dies, and by the grace of God, he goes to heaven. So he stands there in front of pearly gates, and St. Peter meets him and says, "Oh, what did you do for a living?" "When I was a truck driver." "Oh, truck driver, great people. You go straight ahead. Just go straight. There's a door on the right. You open that door, and there's going to be a parking lot full of trucks. Pick out the one you want." Truck driver's eyes lit up. He couldn't believe it. He runs through the hole, opens the door, and sure enough, there's a parking lot full of trucks. All the fanciest trucks. He picks the fanciest, the most beautiful truck there is, climbs inside, and just sits there, staring at the dashboard. All these lights, all these gadgets. He's mesmerized. He sits there for 10 minutes, and he gets bored. So he cranks up the motor, and he listens to this perfect hum of a big block engine, and he feels total tranquility. 10 minutes passes, and he's bored again. So he picks up a CB radio and says, "Yo, St. Pete." He calls St. Pete. "St. Pete, now what do I do with this truck? Do you have a load for me? Where am I going with this?" St. Pete goes, "We have a problem with that. You see, not a single freight broker had made it into heaven yet. So there is really no one to set you up with a load." So this joke basically describes the sentiment out there. But why can't a small trucking company get direct customers? And the answer is simple. You're just too small to work with a large company that ships truckload freight. The main issue that shippers, meaning producers, those who ship freight, that shippers have with small trucking companies is trust. How do you trust hundreds of small trucking companies with your freight? And problem number 2, management. How do you possibly manage hundreds of thousands of trucking companies daily? It's simply impossible. Not a single producer, manufacturer, or a distributor that ships product can work with too many vendors. So they end up working with those few that have the scale to handle multiple jobs at the same time. And the last issue, so the first issue is trust, second issue is management, and the last issue is absence of technology. The technology that would connect small carriers directly with shippers. Those incumbents, the large trucking companies, they get the first dibs, and they have the technology set up directly with those producers. So all the freight flows through them. Small trucking companies, on the other hand, they operate in complete silos. And that's the reason for their demise. Fragmentation in trucking benefits the incumbents because they get to rebroker the freight that gets to them. They can rebroker it to the masses and take all the profits out of it. It's not unusual for a load to go to two or three hands before getting on the truck. So there are 3 issues: trust, inadequate size, and lack of technology. So, in order for us to solve the issue of trust, or a lack of it, we need the trucking community to unite and follow standard rules. Every truck they run has to be connected and visible to the network. I see a large decentralized trucking organization that consists of thousands of small trucking companies. Shippers will be able to work with this organization as if there were one unit, the same way they work with the incumbents. A strong identity will be the key to introducing trust. A shipper wants to know exactly who carries my load, are they insured, are they compliant, are they safe, and where are they now? Second issue, the issue of size, will be solved because the community will work together as one. So the total number of trucks will be adequate for them to handle multiple jobs at the same time. And finally, the technology, probably the most important piece of the puzzle. Blockchain is a technology of trust, first and foremost. So the important elements such as identity, reputation, transparency should all be there. But most importantly, that this technology should be seamlessly integrated with the software used by the companies that give out freight. And so, in addition, I believe that the community should be given a chance to own a part of this business. Because when you have skin in the game, you will do what it takes to see it succeed. This is the time when the disadvantaged majority can start to compete with the incumbents head to head. The hierarchies may eventually crumble. And this is the original promise of blockchain. So what we're doing, we're creating a vested community of connected fleets governed by the set of rules and rewards for one common purpose: handle the movement of freight in the most efficient, transparent, and profitable way possible for all. So, the technology we're talking about is blockchain. It's the technology of trust. It allows people and companies to come together to accomplish shared goals. Unlike thousands of years ago, thanks to this technology, these communities can host hundreds or thousands of people and still preserve order and integrity, because all the dealings are recorded in the immutable ledger and cannot be tampered with. This community doesn't have to be location specific. It can be dispersed across the country or across the world. Over time, this community can govern itself, organize, change the rules, and improve. And what's most important is that the community decides what's most valuable to them and what's most valuable to the customer. In my opinion, the decentralized trucking community will be in better position to align its interests with the interests of their customers, because the decisions will be made from the ground floor by the people who do the actual work. Blockchain is also a technology for collaboration. It is a very important element as well. In order for the community to be successful, we have to collaborate easily between all the parties, including customers and customers' extended network. Customers should be members of the community as well and have a voice. They should have a better experience dealing with the decentralized community than they do with the incumbents. Collaboration should be enabled technologically, and it should be simple. But there is another reason for collaboration: operational collaboration between the trucking companies themselves. You see, today, not a single small trucking company has the resources or the knowledge to manage all the operation correctly. Safety, maintenance, driver training and recruiting, dispatch, these are all very advanced and difficult things to do. If small carriers are able to buy the deficient resource from their neighbor, they can complete one another and eventually complete the entire organization. Example, one trucking company may have strong dispatchers, and another trucking company may have strong safety management. By collaborating with one another, these companies can complete each other. This doesn't have to be done for free. They can charge one another for the service. The technology that we're creating has to be able to handle those transactions as well. It has to enable companies with deficiencies to find the ones with strengths, and vice versa. The idea here is to break these companies out of their silos and get them to work together. They'll be better off for it. Well, now let's switch gears a little bit. And it throws people off. After all that I've said, usually this subject is completely different. But let's talk about tokenization, tokens. What is a large decentralized community or trucking community without a native token? Why do we even need a native token? Why do we need a token at all? Well, the way I see it, the token can be an easy way to record a value of work. You see, right now, no one really notices when a truck driver does a good job. However, God forbid something goes wrong, the record is everywhere. And sometimes it'll follow you to the end of your days. And that's why being a truck driver is such a thankless job. That's why there is a shortage. I think the credit should be given at the very time the credit is due. So when a truck driver does a good job, he should earn a token. And the transaction for which he earned that token should be recorded on the blockchain and serve as a proof of value created. Truck drivers shouldn't be the only ones earning a token. Other key participants involved in a transaction should earn it too. The rewards can be distributed to individuals or companies. But let's take a look at how a token can be generated. Smart contracts can be written to determine the value of work for each job persona. For example, each truckload shipment has 4 key participants: truck driver, dispatcher, shipper, and receiver. Each participant has an obligation to fulfill. Smart contracts can look at the job execution of each key participant and measure the actions against these 3 important elements. First element, deal integrity. Did you do everything that you promised on this particular transaction? Number 2, safety. Did you do everything in a safe manner? And number 3, environmental impact. Did your actions have a positive effect on the environment? The way it works, we pull the data elements from the truck, from driver's cell phone, feedback and reviews from all key participants, and score it against these 3 key measurements. This is how these tokens are generated and awarded to people. And it happens at the very time the work is done. You can look at it as an instant bonus. It is an incentive to do better work. Over time, these smart contracts will be modified and include new actions to improve the process, to incentivize people to improve. And by doing so, we can improve the entire industry. So, what's the use? You work, and over time, you earn many tokens. What do you do with these tokens? I can see 3 primary utilities for Triple T tokens. Number 1, discounts, similar to airline miles. Businesses, they cater to trucking communities such as fuel stops, truck repair shops, and even restaurants may choose to accept Triple Ts as a partial payment for the service. This way, they attract more customers, and the trucking community gets discounts on products and services that they use daily. Number 2, staking for reputation. Trucking companies may choose to use these tokens to stake for the reputation to engage new customers. Example, I've never worked with you before, but I want you to give me a chance. I'm willing to stake X number of Triple Ts, and after a certain amount of transactions, if I do well, I get to keep my stake. If I fumble the ball, you keep the stake. And all the while, both of us are earning tokens for doing a good job. Now, that's the case for the companies that already have the tokens, that they've earned tokens before. But what about a brand new company? A brand new trucking company just started, doesn't have any customers. A brand new trucking company may choose to buy these tokens from those who have it and do the same thing, stake on their reputation to get business for the first time. Now, by selling tokens, the company that has it doesn't really lose the reputation. You're not buying these tokens to buy reputation, because reputation cannot be bought or sold. It can only be earned. But what you're accomplishing by doing this is you allow people to jumpstart their business. And that brings me to the third utility for tokens. Tokens can be used to calculate a reputation score. And a reputation score can be calculated very simply by dividing the number of tokens earned by the number of jobs. So for example, if you are earning 1 token per job and you've earned 90 tokens on 100 jobs, then your score is 90. Well, you're doing well. Once you earn a lot of tokens, you may choose to sell them, but you don't lose your reputation. Your reputation still stays the same. So we're now at the beginning of our journey, and our next step is to create a minimum viable community, a small decentralized trucking organization, so we can test all the assumptions that we've made. In our journey, we should remember that our goal is to decentralize and disintermediate logistics, make it efficient, fair, transparent, and profitable for our main stakeholders, mom and pop trucking companies, shippers, and the American truck driver. And that concludes my presentation, and I want to mention a few words. We chose to go with Linux One Service for scalability, security, and reliability because trucking industry is very transaction intensive and it has spikes. And we're developing a Hyperledger Fabric, the immutable permission blockchain. And we're partnered with Cognition Foundry, IBM partner. We have representatives here from Cognition Foundry. They're developing our product. My information is over here. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or email me, or you just simply pick up the phone and call. And now we can open up for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. In order to get maybe a few, I'm a customer based. I do things for customers. To do something like a similar small use case, so maybe we can do something in blockchain. Or if you have a bunch of developers who are actually getting started with the blockchain, and how can we engage them? Like what kind of a tiny use case we can get them to actually have them to understand the enterprise level use cases in a bigger scale.
What kind of use case we can get for the customer?
And for that, how can we actually start learning perspective from where to the developers?
Okay, so you have the developers, and you want a use case
yes.
that you can sell to the customer. Well, there are different movements. When you talk about blockchain, there's a movement of blockchain the way IBM sees blockchain, which is a shared ledger technology to get people in your supply chain to hop on this shared ledger to share their information. That's the IBM use case. What I'm offering here is basically decentralized autonomous organizations and how to apply that to our business. I think trucking businesses is a great use case for a great candidate for creating a decentralized autonomous organization because the task that people are involved with is repetitive. And because it's repetitive, it can be automated further.
To get started, do we need to start in a bigger scale? Like, do we need a loads of amount of data to get the transactions moved, or we can go in some smaller data perspective to a bigger scale?
I think you can start small. You can start with the customer. You can start with the customer and identify what the problem is, and just get the customers, vendors on the same platform, and start with a shared ledger. That would be the use case. Yeah.
Hi, Leo. Thanks for the presentation. Just listening, I was imagining Uber for trucks with a cooperative ownership structure.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
You said the word cooperative.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're creating is similar to a cooperative.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. You had mentioned obviously that one of the biggest maybe possible blockers to getting this going is obviously the shippers. So you have the big shippers with the jobs. They work with the big incumbents. From your research, or from where the big guys that you've talked with, what is their main value in going with something like this versus sticking with one of the incumbents who take the risk basically? If something doesn't get shipped, they answer for it. So what do they have to say? Who are you talking about? I'm talking about the shippers that have the jobs. They need to be shipped.
Shippers.
The big incumbent.
Exactly. Yeah. Right now, the tendency for the shipper to work with as few companies as possible.
Right.
But in the future, what I'm set out to do is to create like a cooperative of companies that can work as one. And yes, these companies have to really work as one. So there's got to be a neck to choke as well. So we don't have that worked out yet. We're working on it, on how to create this type of organization. Whatever we do, it has to be, from the shipper's perspective, It has to be just as safe. There's got to be a neck to choke, and the experience has to be the same, if not better. Yeah, this is a paradigm shift, and paradigm shifts are usually difficult. But I think that's where things are going, because there's so much unhappiness and unhealthiness in this industry, especially among truck drivers, that the way things are done right now just cannot stand. Something has to give. And who are the main people here? Who are the most important people here? Truck drivers. You don't have any truck drivers, it doesn't matter.
So the different fleets, they tend to have different IT systems. How do you connect your system with the other systems? Do you have to build an API for each and every system, or how is your onboarding process?
Well, this industry, trucking industry is relying heavily on EDI, but APIs are coming to the forefront. And there's a lot of cross-integration is happening between transportation management systems right now. So our goal would be, once we get a minimum viable community, to stick ourselves in that integration, in the integration pool.
So
Is it going to be separate to each company? It'll probably be separate for each TMS provider. Usually in this industry, one TMS handles many customers.
And also other limitation, for bringing smaller companies on board would be that they may not have the IT resources to support the transition. And you cannot really charge them, because if you start charging them, then they won't want to come on board.
The challenge for any blockchain project, and I hear that it's also a challenge for TradeLens, that is to get people to collaborate. I think the case for TradeLens is a little bit more difficult.